There is a very specific aesthetic associated with a successful software developer in New York City. It usually features an immaculate apartment, a high-rise desk setup, and a bright, modern work lounge overlooking the skyline. The day-to-day routine is augmented by high-end, carefully selected gear. The commute, for example, happens on a sleek e-bike built with minimal design, no visible buttons, and integrated navigation and GPS tracking controlled entirely through a smartphone. Professionally, this lifestyle peaks with reaching senior engineer status. You build an audience and gain career momentum simply by giving effortless, behind-the-scenes tours of a vibrant tech office. Combine a curated aesthetic, premium gear, and a senior title, and it paints a convincing picture. The lifestyle looks entirely frictionless, projecting an illusion of constant upward momentum in the tech industry. In reality, that momentum can shatter rapidly. The first cracks usually appear in the logistics, like when brand commitments and sponsorship deals flood an inbox, completely overwhelming a single developer's capacity to plan and schedule their week. Then comes the professional roadblock. Corporate HR bans all filming inside the office. Overnight, the primary mechanism driving the developer's channel growth is completely eliminated. The stress of these sudden shifts often manifests physically. A severe, unexpected breakout of adult acne can destroy a person's confidence, especially when their career involves sitting in front of a camera, forcing intense medical intervention. This chart maps out a heavy Accutane dosage timeline against a highly volatile mood fluctuation trendline. The treatment requires constant blood work, and the medication itself triggers severe systemic side effects, including intense mood swings. When you compound those physical and professional stressors with a sudden emotional blow, like the passing of a grandparent right at the turn of the new year, the entire system locks up. A total operational pause becomes unavoidable. Outwardly, the aesthetics of success are still there, but internally, admitting to the reality of burnout is the mandatory first step before any genuine professional or personal recovery can actually begin. Getting back on track starts with a return to the foundational work. For a full-stack engineer, that means diving directly back into the core tech stack, focusing heavily on web applications, utilizing Next.js and FastAPI. But knowing the stack isn't what builds the career. To go from a college dropout to a senior engineer in a highly condensed timeframe requires a very specific operational mindset. This flowchart illustrates a fork in a standard engineering career path. The bottom line tracks the trajectory of a standard task completer. The upward diverging line represents a developer who takes initiative, meaning they consistently put new ideas forward and take absolute ownership of the project's outcome. Executing on that ownership creates a looping feedback cycle. As you prove you can drive a project to completion, standard coding tickets naturally get replaced by higher-level responsibilities and leadership roles. Rapid career advancement is rarely driven by writing flawless code on the first try. It is driven by a high tolerance for taking initiative and owning the results, despite the massive uncertainties at the start of a build. Of course, sustaining that level of cognitive output over the long term requires aggressive, disciplined biological maintenance outside of working hours. The physical strategy relies heavily on the weights. Building functional, overall physical strength requires starting the routine with heavy compound lifts. The mechanics of the workout are highly targeted. Those heavy compound lifts are kept strictly between 6 to 10 reps to maximize strength. They are then contrasted with isolating exercises, like bicep curls, pushed into a higher 12 to 18 rep range to force muscle hypertrophy. Heavy lifting creates the physiological demand for growth, but meeting that demand requires a disciplined approach to nutrition. This introduces the logistical hurdle of tracking macronutrients, planning weekly meals, and executing the grocery shopping. Attempting to handle all of that manually often leads right back to burnout. Offloading the entire process to pre-planned, chef-crafted meal systems eliminates the friction, solving the logistical bottleneck of hitting specific fitness goals. An engineer's mental energy is a finite resource. Ruthlessly protecting that energy from exhausting domestic overhead proves to be just as vital as protecting their calendar from excessive corporate meetings. Sometimes the best way to recover from burnout in one technical discipline is to throw yourself into another. Stepping entirely away from familiar web development opens up the mental bandwidth to learn a completely new environment, like iOS and Swift UI. The focus becomes a personal passion project. In this case, it's building a custom, highly fluid project management app designed from scratch to replace a clunky, inefficient mobile Notion setup. The new environment introduces a host of fresh technical challenges. The developer has to figure out how to hard code rich text formatting from the ground up and design a seamless backend logic for linking individual tasks directly to overarching projects. There are no deadlines here and no corporate expectations. Engaging in unrestricted, pressure-free creation serves as a necessary mechanism to rediscover the fundamental joy of engineering. Navigating the bottleneck of burnout eventually leads back to a stable baseline. The personal project's progress, the physical routines lock in, and a healthy, productive workflow resumes. However, spending 10 hours a day inside the logic of a codebase creates a specific kind of isolation. When you work from home, it is incredibly easy to forget that a massive, complex world exists entirely outside the edges of the screen. Professional longevity requires a hard boundary between the digital and the physical. There is a specific clarity that comes from closing the laptop and reconnecting with